Good morning. Welcome to today's class. My name is Jon Witt, and this is a Hatha yoga class, so a base level class to help get those of you that are new to yoga started. It's a good class if you have an injury, but know that everything that I do, you could always modify. We could always change it if it's something that doesn't really work for you. So if you're new to the class, thanks for checking it out. If you've been taking the class, thanks for coming back. I really hope the classes are helping you. It's a great time to practice the winter time. It's I think even more important as it gets colder and colder. I think good strong practice at least a couple times a week is really necessary in order in keeping you healthy and happy. So you don't need a lot of equipment. I'm going to focus. I always focus a little bit on a little bit of everything, but I'm going to be focusing more on neck and shoulders and back extension. So I have a couple blocks at some point. They're very useful. So if you have some great, you could always get creative with books if you don't have them. And maybe you're just watching at times. It's a great way of learning. So if things just don't make sense, you could just watch, take notes, and hopefully it makes more sense to you so that you can develop a better practice. So I'm started with my feet just about the width of my hips. And I'm just going to be moving the weight around. I'm moving the weight forward into my feet and back into my heels. So kind of see how you hold your weight when you stand. And then also too, like if you have a tendency of falling in a particular direction, like some people have a tendency to fall forward, some people have a tendency to fall back. This will tell you how you kind of stand. I created a post yesterday about how you could just videotape yourself, and that's such a great way to develop good practice. So you can check that out on my social media. So I'm just moving the weight into my left foot and back into my right again, back into the left, and then back into the right. So see if you can lift all 10 toes up off the floor and then lower them. You don't have the sensory for this. You could always look at the toes, and that's a good way of lifting them. And they may not lift at first, right? But over time, you could do this for a minute or two. I'm not going to do it that long. But your toes will get stronger, and that will help with your balance. You can't really use your toes. It greatly affects how well you can balance on the feet. So I'm going to have my hands behind me. I'm just going to hook the thumbs, and I'm going to broaden my shoulders. So my elbows are slightly bent, and my shoulders are widening, and then I'm going to come up onto the toes. I'm going to lift the heels, and then I'm going to slowly lower back down onto the heels, and then coming up. You want to come up and hold it statically, you could certainly do that, but I'm slowly lowering. These are just, calf raises, very good on, like a step, even better on a step. It's kind of hard to set up for this. So I'm coming up for 3 counts, I'm holding it for 3, and then I'm descending for 3. But if you have really tight feet, just the floor can be even a stretch for someone if they had difficulty in their ankles and their feet. So I'm just going to take the arms out to the sides of me, and I'm going to rotate my thumbs down and forward. So rotating the shoulders in and rotating the shoulders back. So my thumbs are pointed back now, and then forward. I've said this before in my classes. Say you like to count. It could be 10, could be 20, it could be 30. If you're really more interested in the experience, I would just time it, and I wouldn't really be caught up on how many reps I'm doing. And then you can be a little bit more observant of the experience. So this is the third one. I'm rotating in, and then I'm exhaling, and I'm rotating out. When you get to the end range of motion, you can work a little bit harder in rotating the arms. So as you rotate a little bit more, it'll give you a bit more end range of motion. So one more time, I'm going to rotate in, forward, internal rotation, and then I'm going to exhale and rotate it out backwards. And then I'm going to take the arms up overhead, and I'm going to bring my shoulders up to my ears. So this is scapula elevation. So really reaching through the arms, and then as you reach up through the arms, the shoulders will lift up towards the ears. And maybe they don't get up that high just yet. Right? It might take you some practice. And then just let the shoulders relax for a moment, and then taking the arms back up. So as you take the arms up, just a good extension through the arms, through the shoulders, through the scapula, and then you can exhale and you can bring the arms back down. So I'm just going to turn the head to the right, and it's perfectly okay if you're really minimal in turning your head, and then you can turn it to the left. But for most people, as you get used to this, they really don't explore enough range of motion. Not that I'm forcing my head more over, but I'm definitely using more effort, and that's what's giving me more ability within my neck. So I'm turning to the left. Rotations are probably easier than tilting the head or circles. So this is why I'm starting with this. And then I'm going to look to the right. And again, when you get to that point, you can start to move your head even more while keeping the torso squared. And then I'm going to turn to the left. And then I'm going to bring it back to center. So I'm just going to move the arm in a circular motion, but maybe it's just, for you, maybe it's just this height, right? Just going to move it back and forth. So if you had a tear in your shoulder, what I used earlier in terms of, the internal and external rotation in the arm, it's probably going to be a lot better than swinging the arm. So if you're like, I don't know if I should swing my arm, just stick to more like motor skill type of technique, and that'll help. And then I'm going to swing it back in space, and you can see that my rib cage is turning as I take my arm back. So good practice is that you could look to the hand, and then the arm will fall. It's very good for the neck, good for training your eyes. Right, just a few more, and then I'm just going to let the arm kind of dangle and swing. Now I'm going to go over to the left side. So same thing, I'm just moving the arm. I'm just kind of swinging it in space, and it doesn't have to be, it could be even smaller than what I'm doing, but just getting the arm to move as I am. I've said this about the hips, the more you move your legs, the more it moves the whole entire body. The same thing with the arms. So as you get your arm to move more freely, you'll be able to move your legs more freely and your spine more freely. So now again, I'm going to move the arm back in space, keeping the elbow straight. So when I get to the top, you'll see that my chest is turning. So I'm not perfectly squared. So when you are walking, it's really minimal, but even though the arms aren't moving very much when we walk, the torso is turning, the pelvis is turning in space slightly, and that's what gives it, such a fluid motion when you have healthy joints. So you can let the arm move a little bit faster if you wanted to. It could be really slow and methodical as well. And then I'm just bringing the arm down. So I'm going to go back into having my hands beside me or behind me and lifting the heels, just to, feet. If I had only one thing to practice, I'd either work on my feet or I'd work on my neck. Keeping your feet and hands and neck mobile will help your shoulders. It'll help your knees. It'll help your hips. So that's why I'm focusing more on feet as I start you, and then more on your neck and your shoulders. So then I'm going to lower the heels. Just to warm up your legs a little bit, I'm going to take the feet out a little bit wider than the shoulders. I'm going to turn the thumbs up again so that I'm getting a rotation in the shoulders. And then I'm going to push the knees and the thighs apart and just sit to a level that's relatively easy for you, but you're building up good strength. And then if you're wanting to build up more range, you can certainly try to sit lower, and then you can bring yourself back up. I'm just going to do this 2 more times. So I'm bending the knees, pushing the knees apart as I drive my legs apart. Again, I'm not sitting as low as I can, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to bring my tailbone underneath me so that I'm getting my abdomen to be part of my support, but also getting the tailbone to move down will help stretch out the lower back, and it'll help stretch out the hips. Now, you could sit lower if you want to. and then bringing it back up. You can take the arms down. So you're getting really tense in the shoulders and neck. You know, I think it's perfectly okay to move the arms down. So again, I'm sitting into my range. And for you, you might be like, wow, my hips are so tight. Your rotators, right? And some of you, it might be your hamstrings. And some of you, it might be like a big, big stretch within the spine. And then you can bring yourself back up and your arms down. So I'm going to come down onto my hands and my knees and move you around a little bit, get into your shoulders and your neck. Again, work more on extensions. So come down to all fours. You can have the hands directly underneath the shoulders. You can turn your hands out if you need it, just moving the weight side to side. And I'm bringing the weight forward if I can. And a very good habit to create is using more strength in the hands. So whether you're new to yoga or you've been practicing for a while, try to use more effort in your hands. And you know, you did a long, strong practice, you know, you probably wouldn't do that the whole entire time, you know, only in certain situations, right? But for someone that's practicing for 20, 30, 45 minutes, something like that, you can work pretty hard in the hands and it'll help build strength in the hands and you'll have less discomfort in the hands and the wrists. So come back into the middle and turn the hands out to the sides of you and just move the weight laterally. And now it's a little bit easier to go further into the hands and into the wrist in terms of stretching them out. Like I said, the hands relate very much to the shoulders. So as the hands work better, then the shoulders will work better. And then come back into the middle and turn the hands in. So I'm turning the hands inward to face one another, but you might be able to turn them in even more. So now I'm doing a circular rotation around the circumference of my hands. So I'm moving the weight around, and then I'm moving it around the other side. And when you're doing this, you know, it certainly doesn't have to be even. So if I'm like, wow, that's interesting, and that's a good stretch of my hand and my wrist, I may bring more weight into one hand more than the other because I'm getting that type of feedback. So turn the hands forward and just let your chest move down in between your arms and then push through the hands and hold the top. So if you're very weak in the shoulders, just hold this top position. And then if you could, slowly descend the chest down and then push back up. So this is straight arm scapula strength, which will help support all straight arm positions. So you're going to let the chest move down again, just a simple retraction. And even here, you can work on getting the shoulder blades to come in. And then when you push up, you'll notice that the scapula spreads out, which is, you know, going to help stretch out the back as well. So I'm going to come up into the top of a plank. I'm going to lift the knees up off the floor. I'm going to reach back to the heels of the feet. My tailbone is down. My pubic bone is lifting. I'm working pretty strong here in my hands and my arms to support better strength. Like, you don't want to just hold it just for time and just being like letting your joints support you. So lower the knees lightly and then come down onto the elbows. And if you can, reach the arms forward where you're up on your fingertips. And your head's probably going to be off the floor for most people. But keep the ribs in and think that someone's helping to push your shoulders to the mat, the front of your body to the mat. And then you'll get more of a stretch through your upper back, which is pretty restricted for most people. And then come back up to all fours and lift up into plank again, just for a breath, and then take it up into a down dog. And then in down dog, right, make sure that at least the index fingers are pointed forward or slightly turned out. And then I'm pushing, not incredibly hard, but I am pushing through my hands to help stretch up the backs of my legs and into my upper body. So long stance, really, really good for the upper body, and shorter stances, generally speaking, are better for the lower body, right? More of a stretch into calves and the hamstrings. So come forward into plank and then come down onto the elbows. And then what you're doing here is the same thing that we did in the scapula push-up. So if I can, I'm going to let my chest kind of descend down, and then I'm going to push back up. So I'm just letting the chest move down and then back up, which can be very difficult. But like I said, it's for the well-being of your shoulders. Lower the knees, lower the thighs, and then you're just in Sphinx position. So I'm going to take my elbows slightly more forward, and I'm going to pull myself forward. And what I'm doing is I'm measuring the weight in each of my hips so that I'm stretching out the sides evenly. You might have a side that's actually tighter than the other. So look high over the right shoulder, and look high over the left. Right? And then bring yourself back to center, and then you could just stay here, right? But I'm going to come down and work on more of just some basic lifts, what we call in yoga locust. You know, fitness world, they'll call them like Superman poses or something like that, which works too. It's just the name, right? So when I come down, I'm going to have my arms beside me, and with my arms beside me, I'm going to lift my chest, lift my feet up off the floor. If I can, I'm going to get my feet together. And with your feet together, not that it has to be that, is you'll feel your butt squeeze. So when you get into higher, deeper back bends, this can be really, really helpful. For most people, they'll need more tension there to support that greater range of motion. So bring yourself down, take a couple deep breaths, and then I'm going to come up again into this position. So when I'm coming up, I'm lifting my chest, I'm lifting myself up away from the floor, and then I'm coming down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my hands underneath my shoulders, and I'm going to come up a few times. So when I come up into Cobra, I just want to keep getting longer, right? I don't want to just come up, right? When I come down, I'm trying to think about what area of my back isn't necessarily moving, right? It's very easy to just come up with one vertebrae. Like when you see someone that has a really deep back bend, you might see like they're folding like they're an L, right? And that could be perfectly fine, right, for that person. But then again, it could be not so good as well. So I like a collective arc as much as I can produce as I come up and then coming down. So not that this is like you should be doing this, but if you had something specifically like a herniation in your back, you know, your PT would probably prescribe you coming up a number of times coming up like this. But in yoga, it's taught like just come up and hold, right, in a more classical setting. But I like coming down, right, and then bringing myself back up. And I believe in static hold as well. So take 3 deep breaths. I'm squeezing the feet together if I can. Right? It'll feel like someone's pulling your hips down the floor. Use your hands, like I said, in plank. And then slowly come down last time. And then come to all fours. If you're strong enough, push to the hands. Press straight up into plank. And then come down on the knees. So I'm going to sit back where my toes are tucked. I'm going to sit back on my heels. And this doesn't feel good for most people. But if it's just difficult, I would do it. I would continue to do it. Because if your feet really start to stiffen up, it can be very problematic. Not to scare you, right? Have the toes untucked and then sit back on the feet. Like if you don't use that area of your body, it's just going to be harder and harder to get back. But very well possible, right? In most cases, it's just the connective tissue is very stiff. It's very weak as well. So come back up onto the toes, lift the knees up off the floor, press through the hands, and go back up into a down dog. So all the way back up into a down dog. Walk your feet forward to the middle of your mat. Walk your hands back towards your feet. And then I'm forward but I'd be up on my elbows if I have lower back pain when I forward bend. So if you're the person that you fold forward and you come out and you're like, wow, my back hurts, I'd be extending. And then some people, when they forward bend, they might realize that it feels actually better to round, then that's how you should forward bend. I use both. Really depends on what I'm focusing on. Like if I'm rounded, it's very much of the spine is that you're isolating, not so much the legs. So be up on your elbows and stand up if you're that person. But if you're not, slowly roll yourself up to standing. Come all the way up to standing, and then as you come up, just have the hands, again, just beside you. I'm just going to do a basic side bend. So side bending to the left, letting the head, you can let the head tilt to the left shoulder, but it could be, you trying to pick up more through the right side, right? You can use more effort. If someone was really, really stiff, I might actually use weight, like an external weight to add more stretch for that person. You can bring yourself back up, and then you can side bend to the right. The more flexible you are, the less external weight or pushing you would need. But I work with people and they've been chronically tight their whole life, or they have like scoliosis, some sort of condition. So then I do use weight because I'm not seeing anybody personally anymore. So when I'm working with them online, I'm giving them some external leverage, like could be a light dumbbell to start with. So I'm letting the head tilt to the right shoulder. I'm picking myself back up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate more of the rib cage, just the rib cage. So I'm having my thumb and my pinky's in my chest and my thumb is in my chin. So I'm just rounding, just to see, so you can see it better. I'm just rounding the upper back. So keep the chin level, like if you had like an apple between your chin and your clavicle, or an orange. It's really the same thing. And then I'm lifting, and I'm literally trying to pick myself up more, but keep your chin on your thumb so that you're getting more and more extension from the thoracic, and you'll literally feel the tissue moving. Then bring the chest into a concave position. And these are subtle, but as you get the hang of these, I'll do many, many repetitions when I'm working more back extensions. So I'm going to lift my chin, I'm going to lift my chest, getting myself to lift up. So keep moving up away from the floor with your front body. And then one last time, just let the chest move down. You can round. Again, don't let the head, not that it would be bad to move the head, but you're going to be way more specific and stretching your back. Now, if you feel it in your lower back, you're hinging too much from the hips. So you want a minimal round, not much fold at all in the hips, and then bring yourself up. Now, if you have a consistent yoga practice, you'll want a full floor, but we're keeping the range of motion very limited so that it's more and more specific into the upper back. And then you can bring the arm down. Now I'm going to do the side-to-side motion, but I'm going to do it with motion. So if I'm a person that, woke up this morning, I don't feel very well, just work on the static holds. That's what I would recommend. But I'm going to go to the right. Now I'm not moving my head in this way, so it's more isolated in the ribs. I'm going to bring myself up, and it'll help with your coordination, knowing the difference of not moving your head and moving your head. So you can bring yourself up, like you'll have way more body awareness. So I'm going to the right, I'm coming up, I'm going to the left. You'll feel the biggest stretch in entering the pose. And that's why sometimes motion can be better than static holds. You can bring yourself up and you can go to the right. There's many ways to expose the body or stretch the body. If you're not finding the results that you want, know that there's other ways to do it. And that's why I'm sharing other ways as opposed to just using classical yoga. Not that classical yoga is bad. Obviously, classical yoga has its place. Bring yourself up and then going to the right. Like I said, I've worked with people and, literally like 10 years later and not a lot of improvement, but it's great that they stay with it. In those instances, I'm trying to get them to try different things because I know that they could benefit more in other techniques. Bring yourself up one more time, go to the left, and then you'll get more and more exposure into the right and into the rib cage. Keep the head neutral if you can, and then bringing yourself back up. So that'll just help. I'm going to do a triangle just so that you can kind of see the difference. So first we'll do a horse stance because I like that in terms of getting more weight in your feet, your lower body. So have your arms out wide again, have your thumbs turned up, push your knees apart, push your thighs apart, and move your tailbone down. So if you're a person that can't squat, this is a great pose to use, even more so than some other positions, but it's just very much like the squat. So when I'm here, like I said, I'm not sitting as low as I can, right? You could be certainly up higher than the knees. And bring yourself up, and you can bring your arms down and just bring your feet in a little bit closer. So I'm going to be more in not a wide stance, more something in between. So I'm going to turn my right foot out and then take my arms wide. Now, if you have back pain with triangles, keep your torso in the same alignment as your pelvis, kind of like I am right here. That's a very good way. You don't have problems in the hips, you can pull the hip underneath you, which is usually what's taught in yoga practices. So like my right hip, you'll see like it's pulling back. You can use that, but if you've used that a lot for years, I'd start to back away from it because you might not need it as much as you used to. So I'm going to move my arm in space just to get a little bit more work into your shoulders. So I'm going to reach my left arm back for that back foot, which is the left foot. And then I'm going to take it up, and then I'm going to take it forward in space. Now, if you're unstable, just keep it straight up towards the ceiling. So just one more time, I'm going to take it up, and then bring it back, and then taking it up again, and then bringing it forward. Now you can look to the hand, you could look to the bottom foot, the right foot. You could look many places. Take the left arm up, push through the right foot and bring yourself up, and then turning the right foot in and then turning the left foot out. So with the left foot turned out, you'll take the arms out wide, you're going to reach out to the left. Like I said, keep the pelvis in alignment of the torso because it can be really hard on people, right? You don't have that problem. Pull the left hip back, keep reaching out to the left, and then you can grab the left foot and you can take the right arm up. Your left leg may not be straight ever, and that's okay. You may want to be up higher, which targets a different area. It's most likely going to be a little easier in some ways, but you can certainly explore being lower. Then I'm going to reach my arm back for, my back foot, which is now my right foot. And then I'm taking it up, and then I'm taking it forward. Like I said, if you follow the motion of the arm with the eyes, it's really good training for the eyes, right? You can take the right arm up to the ceiling. You could take the right arm back. A big part of classic origin yoga, is just eye exercises. You could take the right arm up and then bringing it forward. And maybe all the way forward isn't really the best angle for you. So you could be somewhat forward or overhead. Then taking the right arm up and bringing yourself back up and turning your left foot in and then just stepping the feet back into a neutral stance. So like I said about, it's very beneficial for the feet, for the neck, right? So my toes are tucked underneath on my left foot, and then I'm descending through my heel. So all 4 toes on my left foot are tucked underneath, and my left heel is moving down. Now, probably would need a softer surface if this is really hard on your foot. All right, just take a couple deep breaths, and then you can untuck the toes, and then bringing the toes underneath you on the right side, and then descending the heel. So I'm not going to do really deep squats or single leg squats, but a lot of it comes from just having more ability in the feet and the ankles. So this is a good starting point. So if you can't squat, you can't do poses like Virasana in yoga, this is a good point. And again, it most likely will take you some time to get the heel down. Like my heel is down. It's not like it has to be. Especially if this is the first time you're doing it, keep your heel up. And then untuck the toes on the right foot, and then you're just going to bring the big toe underneath you on the left foot. And then the same thing as you're descending through the heel. And my mat's pretty thin. It's a good yoga mat. But because it is not so padded, you may not want to get super low with the heel of the foot. Just try to keep the feet more neutral. Like it could turn in too much for you or out. And then I'm going to bring that toe back into place, and then I'm bringing the big toe of the right foot underneath me. And then as I bring that big toe underneath, all my 4 toes, the remaining toes, are just stretched forward. But like I said, if you're really tight in your feet in these types of exercises, you almost see like your hands cramping up. And again, not that there's anything negative about that, but it just, hands and feet are very related. And then you're just going to bring the feet back into neutral. So just lift all 10 toes, and then lower the toes. Lift all 10 toes, lower the toes. Just lift the big toe on the right foot, and then lower that, and then just lift the big toe on the left foot. Just some basic skills, but you could work on every toe, right, if you really wanted to get more detail with that. So just one balancing pose is I'm going to have my feet together, and I'm going to step my left foot in front of my right foot. So it's just a straight line. Now when you're standing, try to measure the weight between the feet. I happen to have a wall close to me, so if I needed the wall, I could use the wall. As this gets easier, you can close the eyes. This is actually more difficult than standing on one foot because it's like a tightrope. It's a good practice to have. If you're interested in learning on walking on rails, which I love to do, you can open the eyes, you can bring the left foot next to the right, and then step the right foot in front of the left. So, and if you're interested in walking on rails, just start on a low rail. There's I live on the East Coast. There's flower beds, and then they have these like small, like little rails. You could start on something like that, or even just like a wood plank is a good place to start. But then over time, you could graduate to like a higher surface if you wanted to. And then again, maybe the eyes are open, maybe they're closed. And then you can bring the right foot next to the left. So I'm going to come back down onto all fours. And then as you come down to all fours, just if you could, just move the weight around again, just to get the shoulders a little bit more mobile. What I'm going to do is take the hands to turn back. So now when I turn my hands back towards my knees, getting a little bit more into the hands and the wrists. Now when I sit back a little bit, the further you go, the more the heel of the hand will lift up. Not that you're trying to do that, but as you get more range of motion, you can do that. But just kind of see where you need to bring more weight. Is it your left hand or your right that needs more weight in this exercise, right? And then come back where the hands are just underneath you. Lift up into plank. Index fingers are pointed forward. Abdomen is in. Tailbone is down. Right? You're moving the front of your body in and then taking it up into a down dog. And you can pedal the legs out. So just moving the feet. Right? And then I'm going to come forward into plank. And you could be on your knees. I'm going to slowly count to 5. I'm going to come all the way to the floor. So 5, 4, bringing the chest more forward. 3. All this time I'm pushing. 2, 1. This is often viewed as like, don't go really low. It's bad for the shoulder. If you don't have anything pre-existing, it's actually very good for the shoulders and the wrist. So I'm going to take my left arm out to the left, and I'm hugging my arm into the floor. I'm turning my head to the right. So I'm really squeezing my arm into the floor to adjust my shoulder and my upper back. Right? This is very simple, right? But can be very effective, especially if you do a lot of push-ups. Right? The chest can get really tight. So I'm going to step my right foot over my left, and my head is down. So I'm squeezing my arm into the floor. Right? Take 3 deep breaths, and I may push more with my right hand if I need that kind of leverage. And then I'm going to bring myself back into the middle, and then just here, again, try to hug down with the arm. Take the right arm out to the right, so it's an active position. My head is to the left, my right arm is out to the right, and then as my arm is out to the side, maybe I'm not stepping over, right? But you could step over. I'm stepping over here, and then as I'm hugging in with the arm, the inside of the shoulders being more exposed. So if you have hypermobility of the SI joint, the sacrum, you may want to limit how much you're rotating your pelvis, because you obviously don't want to overly strain the lower back. Right? Some people are, especially if you've been doing yoga for a very long time, that gets to be almost hypermobile, that area of the back. So hug your right arm into the floor, squeeze, 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 right? And then roll yourself back onto your belly, and then have your arms beside you. So lift your chest up off the floor, lift your legs up off the floor, open and close your hands. Right? As you're opening and closing your hands, try to get your feet together. Lift through your your upper back, and then bringing yourself down, and then just come back up into Sphinx pose. And then in Sphinx, I'm going to look high over my left shoulder. I'm going to look high over my right. And then keep moving your upper body more forward. And then as you develop more range in the abdomen, you start to notice that area gets more to the floor. Right? Not that it has to be, but something you could do. You could also fill the gap, like roll up a towel or roll up a blanket and put it. Some people are very bony through the front of their, they have more bony mass, and it can be a little irritating to be in these positions. You could do that, right? But also to kind of support the lower back, as you could support yourself with a block or blanket or bolster, right? I'm going to come down and do some cobras again. So come down, lift yourself up into a low cobra, extend yourself forward, bring yourself down. Right? When you lift up, try to use more of the strength of your back, and then top it off with the arms. So use your arms more at the end of your extension. Just think of moving fluidly, right? And then bringing yourself down. And then one last time I'm going to come up. And then as I come up, again, I'm strengthening my abdomen. I'm strengthening my glutes. My feet do not have to be together, but there's more leverage involved when they're together. And then bringing yourself down. And then I'm just going to do just a counter with back into Sphinx. So again, look over the left. Look over the right. And then come back into neutral. Have the hands just underneath the shoulders. Tuck the toes. Lift straight up into plank if you can. And go back up into a down dog. So take a couple deep breaths here. Push through the hands. Pull the hips back. Right? Come down onto the knees. And you can sit back onto the feet. Or sit on your block. And sit nice and upright. Measure yourself out. Take a couple deep breaths here. And then what you can do is come into a seated position, just a really basic seated position. Now you could be on a higher surface. I'm just sitting cross-legged. And kind of what we did earlier is we had the hand in the chest. So my hands in my chest and my fingers are into my chin. And I'm going to move my torso. So I'm just moving my upper body. It's very easy to move more from your eyes and move from your head. So just make it very limited in that you're just moving from your torso. And then when when you can't twist anymore, you could certainly move your eyes, you could certainly move your head, but you'll notice that you'll twist more, right? Take a couple deep breaths here. You can turn forward. Same thing, my right hand is outside my right hip. My hand is in my chest and my fingertips are under my chin. And then I'm turning my chest, and I have a more difficult time twisting to my right. So if I wait long enough, I can twist just about as much to my left. It's just I have to work it a little bit more, I have to be a little bit more methodical. So keep lifting up out of the lower back, and then you could turn the eyes, you could turn the chest, you could turn the head, right? But maybe like keeping the head in line with the chest, because it makes it way more of a twist. What people don't realize is that they're turning their head, they're not really turning their upper body, and that's why their twist isn't really improving very much. And then I'm just coming back and in the middle. All right. I hope this class was good for you. I love teaching it. So please join me again if you have the time. Know that all these classes are uploaded to my YouTube channel and on my website. So you can visit my website at jonwittyoga.com if you'd like to take a Zoom class with me, or you'd like to learn more about me, or if you'd like to make a donation today. That really helps me. If you're financially not able, just keep taking the classes. Share my information with people that could value in my classes, because it helps me, and I'd love to help more people, especially at this time. Hopefully things will take a turn and we'll all be more back into being more socially connected or physically connected. So have a beautiful weekend. Hopefully I'll see you in a class soon. I won't see you in this format, but if you do take a Zoom class, obviously I could see you. All right, take care.